Hello, everybody. Oh, there we go. Hi, Kale. Hi, Linda. Hi, Rachel. Rosita, how's it going? Welcome, everybody. We're going to get going in a little bit. We've got, I think, about 60 folks tuning in today. Hi, Wei Ling, and folks from all over, immigration, serving organizations, food services, First Nations, government, provincial governments, municipal government. So we'll try to make it interesting for all of you. Please say hello in the meantime so that we can do some shout outs while people roll in. So you can do so in the webinar chat. And we always love to see what organizations you're coming from and what part of the country you're coming from, because it's folks from coast to coast to coast. And if you want a bonus point, your First Nations treaty or First Nations place name, First Nations, any kind of insights that you might have around where you're joining us from, that would be cool. We always want to hear more about that, and it's part of our little things we can do to learn more about our history. So yeah, you can say hello in the chat and I will do so too. So Alina, and I'm joining you from Treaty 7 and Calgary. And it's Mohkinstsis is the Indigenous name here. So there you go. You can feel free to do so, and it's also a nice, cool way to meet other folks that are in the social sector from all over the country as well. If you see people that are in the same line of work and something that you want to connect on further, you can feel free to drop that as well in the chat. Okay. Do you work at RDN Rural Development? They collect some interesting stats. Do you work with? Yeah, sometimes, yeah, they do some work in communities that are part of Alberta. I think this is the Alberta Rural Development Network. Yep, definitely have, and really great work that they do as well for rural communities. And there we go. I answered that one. Yeah, if other people have other questions, by all means. And I'm going to get started though. Maria Basaraba says hello. Basaraba, that's could be a Romanian name, which I hail from that part of the world originally, but it might not be. That might not be the case. All right. So welcome to this session. I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully you can see that. Yep. So it's really Mareto 2.0 update to our community. Some of you are users of the system. Some of you are contemplating a new data system for your social impact or your coordination of services. So hopefully this will give you a nice overview of what it is and what it does and what's unique about it, but also answer some of the questions on what's new versus the old version. I say old, last year's version. We're always improving things here at Help Seeker and trying to come up with new innovations for the social impact world. So hopefully this gets you as excited as we are about it. So with saying all this, I do want to start with the land acknowledgement and get us going in a good way. And I try to make these so that they're not kind of empty words at the beginning of public sessions. I would love to, share some insights or things that I've been thinking about as I reflect on reconciliation. So for me, the big thing this time is really around traditional territories that really did not care about the Canada-US border. I do know that might be sacrilege to say in a day and age of Canadian nationalism, and everybody on the call is Canadian. I'm presuming, just looking at the organizations, and for us being a Canadian organization as well. But it does merit reminding ourselves that Indigenous economies, Indigenous identities sustain these extensive cross-border trade and relations that did not care about the current trade war. And a really interesting historical fact, and you're looking at a snapshot of a 1794 treaty between Canada and the US. And it was really around one of the aspects of it that was really interesting and often overlooked and forgotten is that that cross-border free trade among First Nations, Indigenous communities that preceded these nations. And yes, this is with the Britannic Majesty, because that was Canada's government at the time, the colonial government, but it respected, it codified those trade relations so that free trade for First Nations could be maintained and respected. So the reason I bring this up today is not just to kind of poo-poo on nationalism, but it's actually just to remind us that not to forget those commitments that are often overlooked in modern day treaty negotiations, and that, you know, this Indigenous component of the Canada trade negotiations with the US should still be respected and top of mind, and hopefully on their side as well. But I mean, we can only do what we can from our side. So anyways, that's my land acknowledgement for today. This stuff that's top of mind for me, at least. So with that being said, I'm going to carry that theme through around the webinar, because we picked an organization. We always want to showcase an organization that we're working with as we do these demos, because it's cool not to just look at empty sandboxes, right? You want to look at something that's in practice today. So we've picked a First Nation and Inuit specifically organization to showcase from Ottawa, but again, they're servicing folks from all over Canada, the Inuit territories specifically. And again, Inuit peoples are multinational, right? So definitely of note there as well. So we're going to talk about the upgraded Mareto. We're going to talk about specifically what's new in this one. I'll showcase a couple of features, and then we'll make sure we have QA next steps as well. So background on Mareto and where it fits in Help Seeker's ecosystem of products. Folks know that we have three main lines of products that we developed with support from the social sector over the last 5 years. And those of you that have been with us for a long time, you might remember the Compass project, which was funded by the Government of Canada through Innovation and Economic Development Canada. So this whole idea of sovereignty over our own intellectual property and sovereignty over our own technology was top of mind. Whether you like the Liberal government or not, under Trudeau, that was one of the investments that they made, is to make sure that we had technology that was built for us, by us, so that it can withstand some of these shocks and dependencies on US technology. So, because that's primarily what drives a lot of the products out there, is underneath the hood, if you will, that technology, that intellectual property is often owned by foreign governments or foreign multinational corporations. In this case, it's not. It's owned in Canada and maintained in Canada. So Mareto, what the history of it is, it came from that investment in social impact by the public sector and the nonprofit sector. So they worked alongside us in the Compass project to develop the first prototype of Mareto. We had our first iteration last year that was in market, and then this is our second iteration. Again, the more the social sector buys into this, the more revenues Help Seeker can bring in as a social purpose corporation to keep improving it. So this is your guys' value add to this ecosystem, is the more you invest in it, the better we can make it. So this is built alongside, and it evolves with providers, service providers and funders as well, because it takes the entire ecosystem to make this work. Of course, merits repeating, just in case. This is always a question we get, and we're like, of course it's Canadian servers and in compliance with Canadian privacy, but I will mention that again. And it's this specific product is really built for case management data and service coordination across organizations. So if you're more asking us, hey, how do I do a projection analysis to end homelessness at a systems level? I would say look out for Cardo, our other product line. If you're asking, hey, how do I ensure my end users, my community members know where to go for assistance because there's so many services, I would say that's Navigi. That's our other product. This is really about that case management, that client level data that we need to track to ensure we're making an impact, that we share data across programs and across organizations where the client says, yes, this is okay. And of course, roll that up for impact analysis to our funders. And from a funder perspective, this is your kind of portal to understand, are we making an impact and which program is serving which population? And incidentally, those are the same questions that organization leaders have. So CEOs or executive directors, or even case management leaders, team leaders, they often have very, very similar questions. Is our work making an impact? So this is the product for that piece. Just precluding, in case you wanted to see some fancy AI models. Yes, we do that as well, just not in this product. So, you never think that being made in Canada is a big deal until you're faced with things that are obvious in the climate of the day, and you never really reflect on, is the stuff really novel because it's made in Canada? And yeah, I think it is. Now that you're forced to reflect on, would we have built this differently if we were a US company? And yeah, of course we would have. And there's a bunch of reasons why I'll show you in a second that are very different here. The big one is that I'm pretty sure nobody's invested, government or public sector hasn't really invested the way we have as a nation in this type of work, where we put OCAP at the center of data models, or where we put that sovereignty around client level data. I think that's kind of a unique proposition that's pretty special for Canada. With all the critiques that come with being in the legacy of kind of a post-colonial culture still. Don't think they talk about this in multinational corps. So the value here is that synergy between grassroots and service delivery with those big picture insights, and having a mission aligned platform. So something that grows with your organization, that keeps your data safe, and your reporting as simple as possible. So why the upgrade? Here's what we heard from our users currently. So one is we need way more control about who sees what. The complexity of data sharing is actually, it's insane, actually. If you don't have a really good, robust system that you can control at a very, very granular level, you're going to make mistakes. And so, not to say that Mareto 1.0 wasn't secure or didn't have these controls, it's that Mareto 2.0 just takes it to that next level. So that sensitive information and wanting really, really specific protections is something that we heard from our user base, and them wanting to go a level even deeper, where yes, we're not technically under the Health Information Act, but we really should be behaving to those standards. And so we had to go dig deep and figure out how are we going to meet those health system level standards, even though our nonprofit customers and our funders are primarily fall under kind of FOIPA or FOIP, or Freedom of Information and Privacy legislation. And there's this really weird gray area where a lot of our service providers in the social sector fall under. So you might be a food organization, you might be an immigration organization, and you might say, yeah, this is not, I'm not doing health. But are you collecting information about mental health? Yes. Are you putting things in your case note about legal status? Yeah. Are we putting in really, really sensitive information about abuse or predation behaviors or court orders, etc., in the domestic violence side? Yes. Well, then arguably, I would say that's as sensitive as your HIV status. So we kind of flipped things around and said, you know what, let's go the other way. Let's assume we're dealing with the most sensitive information, and then let's start opening up rather than kind of working the other way around. So that's the big push for sure. The other one is around reflecting how programs actually run. So the customization we had before, super customizable, absolutely. Some might say it was too customizable, and then others might say it's not customizable enough. So we actually created something that is both, and I'll explain to you in a second how and why, and it'll come out when in the demo a little bit more. We have the ability now to go even more granular around complexity. So those of you that are data scientists or have done CRM configurations, for instance, or ERM, electronic record management configurations before, you have all the tools at your disposal at that system admin, super admin level. Awesome. If you want to write code, that's enabled as well. But if there's those of you that have never opened a system before and have been using Excels, which some of our folks have that situation as well, they would say to us, honestly, it's too complex. You need to lock it down even further. So we have the ability now to configure the experience so that it's really, really, really simple for people who want that simplicity where it makes sense. And we can open it up in that configuration level. Now, if somebody says it's too complex, then we probably gave you too many powers. And that's okay as well. I just don't want people to freak out and say this, I can never get this, because I'll show you how it can be locked down so that it's really, really simple to do. So that's the promise here. Improved user interface. You're going to see it looks way cleaner and prettier. And I do like my pretty UX, user experience features, that greater control, privacy features, flexibility. Theoretically, it's going to be much, much easier to roll this out because it's built with that end user in mind and not giving them things they don't need. So that plus some really cool data validation. Again, you won't care about this until you need to do a report and then you're staring at a bunch of free text. Free text is when you just like put in a text box. The ability to do validation, data validation, it's really, really cool and new as well. So it might not seem like a big deal, but it's a big deal when you look at really nice, clean data that you can visualize right away versus having to do a bunch of work to clean it up. So I'm going to demo this stuff, but major enhancements are that granular, what's called role-based access, RBAC, down to the field level. So we can lock things down so you can see everything about a client, but let's say you want to lock in their, I'm going to say, their First Nation status for whatever reason. That is a very, very sensitive thing, and that should be locked down. You can lock just that piece out if needed. Cross-program funder outcomes reporting and data ontology. For again, might not mean anything to you guys that are not data nerds, but those of you that are, the ability to translate data semantically so that we can do that really cool AI work later on, or even in your own reporting, that ability to understand across programs, because each funder demands something different, you can still roll it up at that organizational level. So that is new, right? That's something that I would say, no, I know for sure. Help Seeker is the only ones that have done this before, because we invented this ontology for the social impact sector to enable this to happen. It's an open source ontology, so by no means are we hoarding this. We want everybody to have access to it. But the cool part is it's built into the Mareto configuration. So that organizational coordination feature, the ability to have 2 organizations or 3 or 4 or 5 networked organizations so that they can share referrals, that they can share client data, they can do case coordination and case management across programs or across organizations, move internal referrals within an organization and across organizations. That's really cool as well. Not to say to take away from other products out there that do that piece. It's just how we build this piece of software. And another one that will be interesting for you, audit logs, the ability to literally see what every single thing that happened in the system is. Now, not again, really exciting thing for your case managers, but it is an exciting thing when you get an audit from a privacy commissioner because there was a data breach, and we have those more and more often, right? So the ability for penetration and hacking of your data systems is just, I don't know how many times our visas had to get redone. I still don't think I have a visa because the hacking is so much better these days, and these old software systems haven't really caught up with these new technologies that are the dark web kind of versions. So that's why, again, we're so obsessed with security as well. And then the other kind of cool things that I said, hey, these are kind of weird things that, or somebody might say from outside looking in, like, who cares about Indigenous syllabics? But it's in some instances, and this Inuit organization is an example, they had a use case where they wanted to use syllabics in their actual data collection. Canadian place names, the ability to have drop downs that are aligned with our Statistics Canada data sets, so that we're calling place names the same thing that the census calls, so that when we roll data up or we want to do analysis to see, hey, are certain neighborhoods kind of at really, really high risk or overrepresented, or certain places in Canada, if we're spelling things inconsistently and we don't have a kind of a key to connect the data, then it's not going to work. So because we have an ontology, and because we've Canadianized the data that's being put into the system, we can do that type of analysis without, I'm not saying that you can't do it in other systems, I'm just saying it's pre-built. And French. So that's the other one, the ability to have the system available in English and French. Location, I'll show you that in a second. So the use case here, a good one would be Alpha House in Calgary. Their outreach team goes into different parts of the River Valley to do their homelessness and harm reduction outreach, and they drop items off, or Kelowna Friendship Center, same thing. The ability to drop a pin on the map and then have that map so that you can see where your concentration is. The location drop a pin is a new feature in Mareto 2.0 as well. I think I've kind of said this, and I don't want to talk about it too much. I think I talked about this as well. The one thing I will say, though, is preventing duplicate records at entry. So just more comprehensive, that fuzzy matching, so that there isn't this duplication, even if the names are slightly different. And then it's the other one too, which I didn't know it was such a big deal until we're transitioning an organization from I will not name the system, but it's very popular. They asked for their data, and it took 2 months, number one, 2 months for them to get the data. Secondly, when we got the data, it was nonsense. It was 900 tables, 900 sheets, Excels, basically, if you just put it in plain terms, that we had no idea how it came together and what it said. And that is not normal. I mean, that shouldn't be normal. The sad part is it's very, very common that you can't get your data out, and that shouldn't be the case. Yes, not everybody should have that power in the system to get the data out, because there's privacy concerns with that. But as an organization, somebody in your organization should be empowered. Let's say the research department or the privacy officer or the CEO in smaller organizations should have the ability to download their data into a Excel, because they have a business reason to do so. So that is the big pitch here too. I talked about the activity logs as well. Yeah, the big one is no black boxes, and I'll show you how that is. For that greater security as well, a lot of, like, if you guys are familiar with something, again, I'm going to pick somebody from like a totally different sector just so that you're not, but just know that underneath a lot of these models are kind of the same. So HubSpot, for instance, they have one instance, and then everybody else is a tenant, is like renting from that one instance. That's fine if you're really, really focused on profitability and having like lower overhead, but it doesn't allow for that customization and doesn't allow for the same level of security than if your organization has its own instance, because it's harder to, if something bad happens, if one organization gets a cyber attack and you're all sharing the same instance, that means everybody's affected, everybody goes down. If you have this separation, then you're protected. And we just fixed the one that got compromised. So that's another one, new thing too. I talked about modern infrastructure and that scalable backend. So this is an interesting one for instances where we're doing, let's say, provincial-wide implementations, and you've got, let's say, a provincial government that's implementing this in different organizations and is wanting to roll this up to say, hey, is our childcare access improving, for instance, or do we have the proper coverage rates without them having to go into every single program and try to wrestle it from reports that come once a quarter or once a year. So having that really scalable infrastructure that's allowing for that scale. Or you might want to do a pilot with a couple organizations and then go later, province-wide or territory-wide. So I'll flip over to my demo now, but I'll just stop sharing this to share my other screen, and I'll just take a look at our questions as well. Taj or Travis, is there anything that you guys really wanted me to hit on that that I didn't hit on while I bring up my demo board here? Or any questions that you feel are super, super important to touch on? Because I didn't see the questions that came in. Busy talk.
We're good right now.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I'm gonna then share my screen and you guys can take a look. And so yes, if anybody from TI is here, an amazing organization, and this is actually their look, something that they picked. I don't know why. I really always love some of the creative components that we can integrate into this so that it makes it feel more at home. But this is the new look at a glance. So you're looking at just the landing page when somebody comes into the system. All of this, as you can tell, it's very, very tailored to TI. So the back end allows us to, let's say TI wanted to do kind of a cross-organizational Inuit-specific research project, and they wanted to collaborate with other Inuit organizations. Because their backend has an ontology data model, that's okay. We know how to integrate the data across organizations, but that doesn't preclude them from having a very tailored experience for their staff, because their staff are really, really busy people. They've got tons and tons of programs. I think we're implementing this in 14 programs. I'm only showing you guys a couple of them here. I'll show you them in a second, but every program in this organization is extremely unique, and that's primarily because they have very different functions, even though they're operating as part of the same organization. So we had to figure out a way for them to have that unique workflow that was tailored for each organization's programs. And within each program, each person's role, and I'm not going to say each person, but sometimes it was that specific. There was really specific requirements that the case manager had compared to the outreach worker, compared to the program manager, compared to the program director, compared to Judy, the CEO, or Rohan, the programs director. So we had to account for all those needs in developing this while maintaining that integrity on the back end to ensure that data synthesis could happen at an org level and at a systems level later on. What you're looking at here is simple things, but I'll show you why this is actually not as simple to deliver in practice unless you have this understanding. So right away you can see these building blocks, these little metric components. These are fully customizable. So these are the things that they cared about. They wanted to see how many clients, and obviously this is fake data, so don't you worry. And they have 2,000 clients, not 20. So just add a couple of zeros. But also how many referrals they've received, how many program enrollments they've had, active cases, and of course, like I'm saying, 6, it's not 6. Another component that they really wanted shown in their homepage is really simply what Inuit region folks were coming from. So these are the Inuit regions. And again, you can of course tailor this for your use case as well. If you're an immigrant serving organization, you might want to look at the top 10 places of origin or top 10 languages spoken. I say 10 because there's 195 countries, and we just did an implementation that I had to look at that specifically, and 235, I believe, ethnocultural identities in Canada. So there, depends what you care about. You don't want to have everything on your homepage, but these are the things that really mattered. And then I said there's the map as well. So we can also see the clients by location. These are not their addresses. These are the places where they were interacting with staff. And of course, we can do cool things like magnifying or, whatever's of interest to you guys. We have something like this that my team is doing for the KFS team, the Kelowna Friendship Society. They have a lot of these maps because they do a lot of outreach in community, like I mentioned before, similar to Alpha House. And so they wanted to track, where those touch points are, and to look at it over time as well. So that would be another really cool feature for this. So that's the homepage. Now I wanted to also show you guys what the workflow would be. But first I want to explain to you a couple of things about this left-hand menu. So while this is happening at the TI home, so this is the organization's home button. These are their different programs. So Kamatsirnik is a child welfare component program. They serve every child in Ontario that has an open child, that is Inuit, I should also say, requires to provide notification. And this is obviously not the child, but the child welfare entities. They need to provide notification to Kamatsirnik. So that's the CYFSA initial notification. That's really, really unique to Kamatsirnik, right? But in that initial notification, there's really interesting insights that can roll up. So first, if a child comes in, they would be counted in the dashboard for the entire organization. If it was a referral, it would be counted in the referrals. But you'll notice that the person opening the dashboard has no idea. They can't click on this and see that it's a specific client. Why? Because everything that happens in Kamatsirnik is extremely private. So even the fact that a client that's in this organization exists in that program is really private information, and you wouldn't understand that, and you would definitely make a big privacy breach if you didn't account for it. Now, is that legally binding somewhere? No, but it is absolutely best practice and an absolute no-no in this organization. So they don't want anybody to know about that. So so that's one instance why these roles are so important, and I'll show you in a second how we do that. So I'm now going to go and pretend. Okay, I'm going to pretend I am the super admin person that has every power in the system. So Rosita, who's here from the Child Advocacy Centers in Red Deer in Central Alberta, in our neck of the woods, so she would have these powers. So not only would she have the access to everything in here, but she would also have the ability to assign users. So she can create user roles, and this would be, here's the Kamatsirnik example. And what's interesting here is that we can give them very specific membership, right? So we can give them super administrator, they can be a developer, they can be a base end user, whatever we want. We can give them program director level powers in a different program. We're not going to do that because that would be inappropriate. And we can revoke all their active sessions and etc. So let's say somebody's a bad actor and you need to kick them out, you get a red flag, you can go in here. You can also create a new user, of course, and I'm not going to create a new one because there's no time, and B, it's not that exciting. You know how to do that. But you can also create new roles. So again, you can create completely new role. Let's say you create a new program and you want to create a case management specific role in that program. You can do that in here as well. So that's really important when it comes to things like permissions. So you can give each program, and this is where I said, you guys, don't freak out that this is complex. This is specifically for your system, your data nerds, people like us, this is all we do, right? And we do this for you in cases where you don't want to do it as well. So in TI's instance, we did all this. We just sat down and mapped it out, and we have a little Excel sheet that we had them say who gets access to what, and then we just implemented it. But I'm just saying, if you're one of these people that want extra powers and you feel you can handle it, we can train you up and make sure you can do that. Because you can obviously create any powers that you want. You can authorize clients, you can authorize connections. So things like Tia actually said that they receive a lot of e-faxes. I didn't even know that was a thing, but apparently from the health system, they get a lot of e-faxes. So they wanted an API integration with a e-fax for e-faxing. Sure. So again, these are things we can now manage really effectively with things like integration pathways or gateways and webhooks and connections. So really, really robust backend infrastructure. Yes, it does get complex, but don't worry. It's not necessarily for you guys to worry about. I'm just showcasing you what's new in the system that wasn't there before. Workflows, if those of you that are really into automation, like this kind of stuff, you can build any automation that you want, and we have tons. So for instance, and we had this in the old system, I should say as well, is just much more configurable now. So the ability, as an example, when a new role gets created, the CEO gets an email notification, or when the outcome status changes towards the negative, the case manager gets a notification. Your world's your oyster. I recommend kind of starting with the basics and then layering this stuff on as your implementation progresses, just because you don't want to. I find a lot of the time things get overbuilt and people just need to start slow. So I also promised to show you guys how simple it can be after showing you how complex it can be. And I will do that as well. But I do want to, and oh, of course I got logged out. That's a necessary kind of step in here. But I did want to show you guys some of the analytics as well that are built in. So again, this is specific around reporting for trafficking, sex trafficking risk. And here it's just an auto calculation based on an assessment of what these clients self-report it. And then you can obviously calculate some of these things, and just gives you that overarching view of each client and where they're at. Can sometimes help folks understand things better. There's a billion ways to visualize this stuff. Also showing you some of the other, the basic charts, sure. Some of these cool radial diagrams, your bar graphs, your kind of pop-ups in here as well. So lots and lots can be done as well when it comes to that piece. And I'll take a little breather here because I'm going to log in as a different person now, a different role. And then let's take a look at how simple we can make this and simple, i.e. program manager level, I should say. Okay, so while I do that, my team, do we have any questions or anything that I should have hit on that I didn't yet? And I'm just going to log in as a different role.
Alina, can Mareto support multiple programs within the same organization?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was showing you guys. So TI is the Inuit organization is one organization. They have 14 programs. So that's exactly right. So Kamatsiarnik was one program, but we actually have instances where, yeah, there's multiple programs in it. You need to be able to roll things up at that organizational level as well. Yeah.
And as an organization grows, can they add programs after the fact?
Absolutely. This is a really interesting one. I'm not going to call out anybody, but we had an organization who thought they had 6 programs. But then when we went through the implementation, it actually turned out that they had 14 programs because they weren't defining a program consistently. Or it's such a big organization that the person that was doing the software thing didn't realize that there were so many programs. So yeah, we just onboard them at different times. The backend ontology, that data structure I was talking about though, is critical because if you don't do that part properly, you can't, right? It's you end up with 900 data tables like I was telling you before. So yeah, absolutely doable. In fact, I would say it's kind of ideal because you really don't want to you really don't want to onboard 14 programs all at once. Like that's probably a nightmare for the organization. You probably want to do a couple at a time. So we're, doing 3 or 4 in the first wave and then another 3 or 4 kind of the week after and so on and so forth. So yeah, I find it's overwhelming to do everything at once for them. And honestly, for us too, to really do a good job on that custom workflow and to pay proper attention to each program. They're completely different, you guys. Like it's, people that try to say, I'm going to force everybody into a template or kind of try to resell you the same software for every program, they're probably not listening to the frontline staff because there's just no way, an outreach program is the same as a kind of a housing case management program or a food bank is the same as a kind of a Meals on Wheels program. They have completely different workflows. Like just think about the staff that are coming into work and opening the system. What do they see? Because if they don't see something that's relevant to them, they're probably not going to use it. And we had that. It was a court probation reintegration program that just purposely didn't join other case management software that the organization tried to put in place because they just didn't feel like they were being listened to. And like that's all people want is to see their work properly reflected in the data. And if you're not paying good attention to it, then you're just doing a disservice. And they're not going to put in their good data, and then they're not going to use that data that they're putting in for insights to make their practice better. So everybody loses when that happens, including the people investing, which is all of us. So here's this login. Okay, so this is the program manager of this organization, and it's fake information, so don't worry. But the whole idea here is that you're seeing. Of course, I am not allowed to enter this when I'm getting redirected, but good. I'm not allowed to see the admin area. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. And now you can already see off the top how different this is. I can only see this. There's only one place for me to go. I have nowhere else. I can't mess with any admin stuff. Okay, and my home screen is different as well because I'm in a different program. I am just in this program. So Alu Yernik is one of the 14, 15 programs in TI. And this program manager, that's who we are impersonating right now, they can't see any of the other programs, right? So remember how there was Pikasik and Kamatsirnik and research, there was all those programs on the left-hand side. Now you only see one. And you see the TI home because they're still allowed to see that. That's okay. But when I go in here, well, I can't see the reporting, that's for sure. The pretty diagram around risk that I was showing you guys before, I don't have that, right? But I have other things that I'm allowed to do. So I can see my staff, my volunteers, families that are assigned to me or my program. I can see my external organizations that we're working on, right? So let's say I want to be able to just create a little blue book or address book of different organizations, who they are, physical addresses. I can even add things like primary contacts or whatever your imagination, whatever your needs are, right? But I can do all that in here. I can access my forms. I can make an internal referral, right? So I can make a referral between my program for, let's say, Aiden, and automatically it goes to pending. And I can say it's coming from, it's an internal transfer. And let's put the date, and I'm the one. It's automatically populates with me because I'm the one. But I'd say Alina is making the referral because I'm just entering the data for her. But let's keep it to the program director. I can give a reason if I want to. And then I want to send it to the family wellbeing program. And is the consent verified? Ooh, must be verified. Okay, yes. Okay. Receiving program, family wellbeing. Oh, sorry. I'm referring and they're receiving, right? And then save. And now if I was in the family wellbeing program, I would be able to, and I said, sharing, I don't know if I clicked this one on or not, but you can select pending client consent if you want to share the program history. So if Aiden gave you the okay that you're allowed to share information between your program and the family wellbeing program, then you're allowed to. But if you don't have permission, then you can't. So that's interesting too, because we found that within a program, within an organization, it's almost like a microcosm of the system. Like every organization almost behaves like a separate organization. So every program almost behaves like a separate organization. Why? Because, well, I'll show you an example. So the best way to understand it is just following the flow. So let's say I was entering a new person in the system, and this is what I would do as a intake worker. Let's say there's a new person that's coming in, and I need to add them into my system. They don't exist, right? So I'm putting in their name. So let's say Alina, and I want to search, are they part of a particular family? Let's say it's Alina Garcia, and my alias is a household. Am I part of a different household? And I can see in here that I'm not. So that's okay. I make a mental note and say, okay, Alina is part of a different household. That's not listed here. I'm going to need to make a new household and then link Alina to that household. Why is linking the fact that Alina is in this family or this household important? Well, because it's really important when it comes to their networks of support, but it's also really important when it comes to relationships as well. And I'll show you that in a second. But if I don't have a way of connecting Alina to a household, then remember, y'all, if you're asking, why is a family different than a household? Well, people that may not be family can share a household. So we share we live together, or but we're not family. We're just roommates or something like that. So there are instances where you can have a household and not be family members. And then there's other instances where you're family, but you're not in the same household. You're not living together in the same household. So we needed to create an instance where both of those could be mapped. Now, if I'm adding Alina to this, adding Alina in the system is different than Alina being a client. So Alina could just be a visitor, right? So I'm just entering her as a visitor, and I can show you that later, but let's stick to the client flow. And so let's say I wanted to add her. Oops, I should save that. There we go. Oh, error and messages. Okay. Oh, I didn't give it a last name. Good. Good. You know, it's working when they give you notifications like that. Now it's created. Perfect. We want, that's the whole validation thing, right? Now we know it's Alina Turner. So now I want to add Alina. So let's find Alina. There she is. And I want more info, because it's very different to be a visitor. You don't need a lot of stuff. Like, you know, we could have pared that down even more. If it's just a visitor, you just need the name and who they're visiting, right? That's very different than registering a client for this program. So in this instance, this program, which is very different than other programs, wants to know certain things. So for their own reporting, they do need to record their date of birth. I'm just making this up. All of this preferred pronouns, syllabic script if relevant. I'm not going to pretend I know any right now. The entry point, how did they get in to the program? Let's just say the TI staff. User access. And then here, I'm okay. Do I want to give access to this client to other people, to other roles? So let's say I have permission to do that, and I can do so. I'm going to give permission to the clinical staff. I'm going to give permission to the director. I'm going to give permission to the manager. I'm making this up. Ethnicity. We want to record that this is something that they have to report to funders. How do people self-identify? That's again something that they wanted to get. Residential schooling. Okay. Request fail code. Okay. They sometimes give us these conditional fields so that we don't make a mistake in data entry. All these components in here are all very, very specific. So as you can tell in here, this is where I was telling you about place names in Canada and making sure that we're speaking the same language. This is where it really matters, because if Paula took is spelled incorrectly, or it doesn't align with StatsCan Paula took, then good luck trying to trace things back in your reporting, because you can, it's just not going to be great. NIHB, so this is an identifying number which they need for their claims process, and then the land claim number as well. Very specific to an Inuit organization. So you can imagine, like, this is stuff that you might need in other instances as well. I'll point this out because this is super, super interesting. And it kind of reminded me that, you know, we take it for granted that how small communities are, even in a country, it seems like a big country, right? But we're not that big, right? We're only 40 million people. And there's about 3,000 Inuit in Ontario. So this is the Inuit Serving Organization, which means that realistically, people are going to have relationships in the organization. So there will be staff relationships as well. So the ability to create a relationship and flag that relationship that somebody has, and in here, obviously there's nobody matching, but the ability to connect that Alina Turner is related to a staff member, that's really important. And let's say I'm the child of, let's say, the director, right? In this program. Oh man, like, that's interesting. How's that going to work? You don't want to deny service, but you do need to declare a potential conflict, potentially, or not, right? But you need to know. At the end of the day, you need to know about it. So that's how you would register the client into the program. If you wanted to add a photo or whatever ID copy, other documents, etc., you can do so. I'm not going to save that because I don't want to mess this up, but okay, I'll show you a couple of other things. So the other one is around client statistics. So because I'm the program manager, I can see everybody in my program, but I can't see other people. I can only see clients in my program that are enrolled to me. And I can see them by demographics. So here's their gender, languages spoken. I can see them by ethnocultural, self-identification, or Inuit region or community region. And I can see them by elder status. And yes, I know these are not pictures. These are not real people. And obviously they're not elders, but I can see them if they have elder status as well. And again, something that was really specific to this program. The obviously safety planning is another one. I'm not sure probably don't have time to get into some of these other components, but I did want to show you guys the last piece, which is, if you have kind of these follow-ups and follow-up dates, this ability to, for instance, see that your outreach team was out and they visited 13 clients, let's say at an encampment. There were 6 Indigenous clients. There was 2 of them that were in a, and you made a promise that on January 10th, your team was there. There was bad weather conditions, and you said you were going to do an urgent follow-up with Howard, Sandra, regarding frostbite concerns and connect Dennis to the emergency shelter. And you said you were going to do that on April 9 at 4 p.m. and you promised to be there. But now you forgot. Or the staff member that was there wrote it down on their phone and now they're sick. Well, the program manager can still see that, right? So they can redeploy somebody else, or they can see what's on the schedule. So that is the cool part. Again, a million other things we could be showing you guys. I don't have the time to. This is just one tiny example. The memo is software should be making your life easier and your impact more tangible and just more intense rather than taking away from it. And with that being said, I'll do my safety exit, which is another cool feature that the program told us about. And I'll kind of see if there's anything I didn't hit on, you guys, before I talk about our next webinar.
There's a question here. Why do you use the word module client instead of entity client or just client?
Oh, I see. I'm hopefully using terms that are more familiar to frontline folks. Modules can be combinations of workflows and forms and things of that nature, but I'm also kind of conscious that not everybody uses those terms. So that is one. You can create kind of clusters of activities. You can also create clusters of activities by role, by program. It's a one way to talk about what's in there to make it make sense. But at the end of the day, it's kind of program dependent. We haven't seen yet a pure, beyond things like everybody does intake or everybody does service touch points. So, that's one way that people talk about modules, like, oh, this is my intake module and this is my exit module. So you kind of have this five types of phases typically in your case life cycle. But we find that that doesn't necessarily always make sense because people's user journeys are quite complex and they don't necessarily kind of respect that. And that's okay. And also the client can be in the same organization in multiple phases. So they, module might confuse folks if we're strictly talking about it from a phase perspective. But I don't know if I answered that or not.
There's a follow-up question or another question is their ability to refer clients between agencies.
Yep. It would require two ways to do it. If the two organizations are using the same system, it would be very similar to how I showed you guys the internal referral. So you can imagine instead of programs, you would potentially lock down further, depending on the client permissions and how you guys want to configure your network of services. So you can do it if organizations are both on the same system, just again, use your imagination to understand that a program or an organization could be interchangeable. And again, you can create programs within the organization. There's this weird instance, for example, where a program was actually being delivered by 2 organizations at once. So a program is not necessarily only one organization. So that's one example. The other way to do it is you can actually create what are called dynamic forms. I didn't demo this. We do have a separate webinar that's going to come out on our whatever 2.1 release, where we're going to be showing the use of dynamic forms. So let's say you wanted to create a survey for your organization, or you wanted to create a referral form, and you can put that on your website so that people can just self-refer or fill in the information themselves. We had that in Mareto 1.0. So if you wanted to make a referral, we have it almost finished. I could almost have demoed it, but I didn't want to mess it up in this one, because it requires obviously a little bit more complexity to integrate into 2.0, but it's going to be out in I want to say imminently, like a couple of days, and we'll do a demo specifically on that. So you can have a referral network that's just referring to you, but you can also have a referral network that is like a closed loop referral as well. So you can do things depending if the other organization is on the same system or not. It just looks differently. Okay. Truck wait times, program capacity.
We're at time now, Alina.
Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. I will say, just as the last slide, is our next webinar will be focused on kind of more complex data work around projection modeling. So scenario forecasts around homelessness projections, and that's May 22nd. But yeah, if folks are interested in Mareto, you know where to find us. Travis's email is right here as well. And yeah, we'd love to chat with you further and talk through. Everybody's unique, so we wouldn't want to say anything about whether this makes sense for you unless we had that one-on-one. All right. Thanks, everybody. Great questions. Oh, thanks. Cool to see the little hands. Awesome. Have a great day.